Hello and welcome to my attempt to beat Pokémon Sapphire with only blue Pokémon in a Hardcore Nuzlocke challenge. The rules for this video or challenge are typical of a normal Hardcore Nuzlocke, except I can only use one blue Pokémon per route. I do play with species and dupe scores on, so I can re-roll encounters until I get a unique encounter. If a Pokémon faints in battle, it has to be released at that point. I'm not allowed to use any items in battle, except held items are okay if attached to a Pokémon. If a Pokémon does surpass the next gym leader's level limit, aka their ace Pokémon's level, they have to be boxed until that level limit's gone. And of course I must play on set mode at all times. For this challenge, to avoid doubt, I'm using Bulbapedia's list of blue Pokémon, so I can only get encounters that are listed on their website. Full rules will be down in the description. All the final stage encounters are now showing on screen, so there's definitely a few interesting Pokémon that we can build a team around. Unfortunately, some of them that we can't fully evolve, such as Gloom into Vileplume. There's also some that we can't use until we evolve it to its final stage, such as Gyarados. So without any further ado, let's get started.
We start our journey in the most unceremonious fashion of all time, by being stuffed into the back of a van by our mother, and just getting a clock in return. Thanks for that, ma'am, much appreciated. Following that, we quickly get our first encounter, and a viable starter for the run. Mudkip obviously being a blue Pokemon. Having a Mudkip this early is absolutely amazing. You can absolutely smash through most of the early game, which is fantastic. He also has a quiet nature, which is plus special attack and minus speed, which isn't too bad. We do end up naming it Some Nerd after a regular viewer of the channel, so welcome to the team, Some Nerd. Following this, we take on our first rival battle versus May. It's not too difficult. We absolutely pummel her Trico into the ground. So we start with a tackle, and that goes for Leah. We go for a growl this time, lowering its attack because we know it's going to be a bit of a longer battle. Retaliate with a tackle again before taking it down with a third. We then collect our Pokeballs from May and the Professor. We're able to get some more encounters for the team. Firstly, we start with Surskit on Route 103. 102? 102. We name it Treadjuice, and it's a pretty decent Pokemon. Quickly after that, we get a Tailor. Name this one Abolish. It has the Guts ability, which is pretty good. Then it's time for Roxanne. We're jumping straight into it here, the Rock-type leader. She starts Geodude, and we go for Some Nerd. Goes for a Water Gun, which is a one-hit KO, before bringing out her ace, level 15 Nose Pass. It's a pretty decent tanky mon, so it will take a bit of perseverance to take this down, hoping for a bit of luck with a critical hit. But we fire off a few water guns before it goes for a Rock Tomb and misses, heals up with a potion which leaves us still unable to KO it. We go for another water gun before Roxanne heals, and then it's just a matter of two, or even one water gun with a critical hit to take it down for our first gym badge. In the process, Some Nerd does actually evolve to a Marshtomp at level 17. Unfortunately, because it skipped level 16, we don't actually learn Mud Bomb, which would be a really good reliable move, and then we have to stick with Mud Slap until later. To make up for this disappointment, however, we do catch ourselves another encounter, which is a Whismur. Pretty decent Pokemon. I'm a big fan of this evolutionary line, so this is going to be a great member of the team, the Whisper Pokemon. And we do end up naming this Penalty. Of course, this is a random name from a random word generator. Following this, we start off with two encounters in quick succession, starting with Myth the Tentacool. This is a pretty decent stall Pokemon. And then following that, we get Magikarp, which we end up naming Drum, and will be very handy to have once we get to evolve it into a Gyarados, so we can actually use it on the team. Following this, it's straight off to Brawly. This is a pretty trivial battle as we have a Guts pre-poisoned Abolish who's able to very quickly make a nice easy work off this fighting type trainer. We learn double team in the process, which we might not even use, but it's just a matter of two wing attacks over the course of the battle to take down the trainer. We then move our way over to Slateport Town or City or whatever the fuck it's called, following this with Mr. Briny. After receiving our second badge. In the process, we evolved Drum into Gyarados, so we can finally use it on the team. It took quite a while to level it up, but we did manage to get some decent EVs in it. Following this, we also get penalty over to a Loud Red, who is I'm a big fan of, so very impressed with that. On our way there, we also beat up a kid and grabbed the soft sand, and then following this, we're able to make our way to the Slateport Museum, pay $50 for the pleasure of this, and we managed to get Thief before taking on some of the grunts upstairs and saving Captain Stern. Heading slightly north, we managed to pick up an Oddish, which unfortunately we can't evolve to a Valplume, but it can be pretty useful on team, so we name it Safari, and we move on to take on the notorious May battle. This one's a pretty tough one, so I hope I'm ready for it. We start Abolish, who isn't poisoned this time, hits a soft wing attack into Wilma, who just decides to splash. Following this, I was expecting a few more splashes, so I actually used a Focus Energy. It goes against us because it does actually use Growl before we use a quick double team. It hits quite a hefty water gun. We go for a wing attack. He thankfully goes for splash, and then we take it down with another wing attack. We do level up, but this time we need to switch out, so firstly we do hit it with a quick attack, I believe, when I finally want to do it. Yeah, we hit it with a quick attack, take a pretty hefty Ember down to 6, which procs our Orange Berry, switch over to some nerd who should be able to manage this one pretty easily. So a quick water gun, and that's normal dealt with. May then goes over to her ace, Grovyle, at level 20, who hits a soft absorb into penalty, which isn't going to bother us too much. He then hits a pursuit, which takes us down to about 2/3. A pursuit takes us down to a quarter, before an absorb takes us down to 3 HP before we take it down. That was a really fucking close one, so I'm glad we managed to get out of that one unscathed. Some good news on this route though, we managed to evolve Abolish into a Swellow, which is a really strong Pokemon, and one that I'm absolutely buzzing to have on the team. Next up, we're on to what's in the third Gym Leader. This one's a pretty tough one, even with the team I have without Mud Bomb. So we have to start with Safari, who hits it, sleep powered it into Magnemite to put it to sleep for a couple of turns, hopefully do us a favour in allowing an easy switch. For some reason I decided to absorb before going to some nerd, and of course it does wake up and hits us with a Supersonic, very annoying. It then, for the pleasure, gives us a Sonic Boom before we one hit KO with a Mud Slap. Following this, he's going to go over to his Voltorb, where, believe it or not, we are going for the exact same strategy. Over to Safari, it hits a very weak rollout, hits another one before we put it to sleep. It's a good thing we did, because it would have built up that damage over a couple more turns. Again, for some reason we go for an Absorb, probably to give us a bit more HP, and then it's some nerd time who should be able to one hit KO it. Voltorb stays asleep, we hit the Mud Slap, which doesn't KO, but we get an accuracy drop, which is always beneficial. Another Mud Slap takes it to about a quarter, drops the accuracy again, it stays asleep, and then it's a quick Mud Slap from some there to take it down. Last up is a Magneton, so we switch out to Safari. It hits the Supersonic. We then try and put it to sleep after taking a Sonic Boom and hit ourselves in confusion. Then we know it's time for a sack. Safari goes down to allow a clean sweep into some nerd. He hits a strong soft sand boosted Mud Slap after Supersonic misses. Gets it to about half, the accuracy drops again. It does connect with Supersonic this time, and some nerd hits himself in confusion. Sonic Boom misses, we snap out, and then we take it down with Mud Slap to earn ourselves the third badge. We then go to the Fossil Maniac's house, beat up a small child for TM28 Dig, and finally get ourselves a viable move that we can use on our Marshtomp. We quickly head south and catch ourselves a new encounter, Swablu. We name this one Floss, and it could be a decent member of the team eventually. We then head on to take on the Team Aqua boss, Archie, and we've actually over leveled with our star Pokemon at the moment, Abolish, so we can't use it in the next gym battle. However, we do use it to take on both Mightyena and Golbat to great effect. Following this, he brings out Sharpedo and we're forced to switch. We head over to Drum, who can get an Intimidate drop before taking a very soft Crunch, which doesn't do all that much damage at all. We then hit back with a Dragon Rage. For some reason it decides to go for Scary Face, which leaves us open for the finisher on the next turn. He opts for Focus Energy, which doesn't do much. We hit a Dragon Rage and we take it down. We then make sure to grab the meteorite from behind Archie so we can get TM27 return from Professor Cosmo along the way. We then get a nice evolution for Treadjuice, who turns into a Masquerain, and he'll actually be great for the next gym. I was struggling to think of a good way to take on this gym without any losses, but then we finally thought of the perfect plan. Flannery leads Slugma and we lead with our very own newly evolved Masquerain. Masquerain gets an Intimidate drop which won't do too much as Fire's special, but we use the Water Sport to weaken Fire's power on the field. Slugma opts for an Overheat, which doesn't do as much damage now, and we're able to get his special attack dropped a little bit before we heal to above half. We then decide to switch to some Nerd. He sets up a Sunny Day which we now need to stall out to make sure that Torkoal can't take full advantage of that Overheat. We hit a Growl to waste one turn. The Slugma decides to use a Light Screen. We then go underground with a Dig and come back up to hit a one hit KO on the Slugma the next turn. Thankfully this takes out 2 whole turns of Sunlight, which will help us along the way in this battle. He then brings out another Slugma, the Sunlight stays up, but we have for another Dig, which will be a one hit KO when we head back up above ground. The Flamethrower could have done a little bit in the Sunlight, but luckily it's now faded, and I'm pretty sure that Torkoal won't use Overheat at all now. With a couple of digs we're able to take it out, so we dig once, it misses a Body Slam obviously, we come back up to take it to just about half. It hits a weak Body Slam but manages to paralyse us in the process, and then it attracts us as well. This is where the bullshit begins, because now we're in a battle against RNG and I'm only always going to be the loser on that side. We go down with a dig, we come back up and we're found immobilised by Love. We then decide to switch over to Drum, who's able to get an Intimidate, except he isn't because of White Smoke. We hit a Body Slam, and then Dragon Rage takes it down for the 5th badge. Except it's on 1 HP. That must be 1 HP. But luckily, we are able to tackle to do a little bit more damage and should probably be a 2-hit KO with Dragon Rage now. Dragon Rage 1 takes it to about a 1/3. We then hit another one to get our 5th gym badge. It was pretty manageable in the end. We managed to get through due to the Water Sport from Treadjuice. What a heroic performance. We then reunite this cringy couple to get hold of Strength, which is a really useful move for quite a lot of our Pokemon. It always makes me feel a bit sick, true love prevailing whenever I do this, but thankfully they were able to reunite and get themselves home. Following that, we managed to get an evolution as Myth evolves to Tentacruel, which is a very decent special defensive mon who can also act as a stall should we choose that option. Then it's next up, we go straight into the gym battle versus our dad. We do start off with the typical dig strategy around Truant before he uses the Hyper Potion and messes up the routine. We then have to switch to Drum, who can take it down with a couple of Dragon Rages eventually. Next up is Vigoroth, which is perfect that we have Drum out because he doesn't have the Truant ability and he can hit like a truck. 2 Dragon Rages makes him Hyper Potion before we're forced to switch to Myth, who hits a Bubble Beam and then hits another one to take him down. At this point, we opt to sack Myth and bring out some Nerd, and then we can go again, working around the Truant ability to take down our dad. Following this, we get HM03 Surf from Wally's dad, which is a massively important move for quite a few of our Pokemon that we'll certainly be using in the future. Following this, we also make sure to head by the game corner to get ourselves a lot of decent TMs to put on a certain Pokemon. We then beat May in the Weather Institute events, get HM02 Fly, and then it's straight into the next gym. You'll notice that Drum has a whole new TM based move pool. He has Flamethrower, Thunderbolt and Ice Beam that we got from the game corner, and we're able to use this to completely terrorise her whole team. Without this, I'm not sure that we'd be able to win this battle, and I still think it was a bit in the air if Swellow got some decent hits on us, but Thunderbolt 1 hits Pelipper. She then brings out Skarmory, who can actually do some damage if we don't take it down, so we opt for a Thunderbolt. It brings it to below half. An Aerial Ace only takes us to 50 before our Oranberry takes us up to 60. Another Thunderbolt finishes the job. Next up finally is the Altaria, which can absolutely ruin runs. We hit it with an Ice Beam. It just holds on in the red before using a Dragon Dance. Uh-oh. We then hit another Ice Beam, but she chooses to go for a Hyper Potion first. The Ice Beam connects. and takes it back down to the red, forcing another hyper potion. This time out we use another ice beam, and we critical hit it to take it down. Absolutely perfect. So that's our 5th gym badge, and not too difficult in the end. We make sure that we use the TM40 for aerial ace straight away on Swellow, because it's an absolutely integral part to our team now. Not only is it a priority move, it's got that 60 base damage, which is absolutely amazing, especially if we have Facade. If we have Guts boosted, sorry, we can certainly do a lot of damage with that. We then try and catch our next encounter, which is a Marill, which we can evolve into an Azumarill as well, but it starts to use Rollout, and I think better off it, and I just bail out straight away. I'm not losing a Pokemon to Rollout like that. But after that we catch Meditite, which unfortunately we can't evolve into its final form, but we can name it Overlook and stick it in the box forever anyway, because it is being overlooked. We then deal with a load of Team Aqua nonsense, unfortunately. I haven't put a lot of this in the screen because there isn't much to it. Not only did they fuck off to Lily Cove, we have to chase them, take on this douchebag, and then they decide to do one in the submarine, unfortunately. Following this, we have a pretty easy battle against Tate and Liza. As usual in Gen 7, we do just use a double safe strategy, and with RNG on our side as well, with them missing Hypnosis, we are able to take them down pretty easily, so it's not really worth keeping in the video. We skip to the end, and Sumnerd does the finishing blow, and for star points as well, we actually didn't level up Sumnerd to the level cap, and we're able to evolve him following the fight, which is brilliant. So yeah, very strong Pokemon, groundwater type, and hits like an absolute truck, and almost perfect EVs on it. It's going to be great for us. We then decided to grab our last encounter of the run actually. We do have a few more to catch, but we decided only to get Chinchou. We named this one Narrow, and it's a pretty decent one. It has Jolly ability, so it's able to move pretty quickly, and it's just an all-round beast. Unfortunately, it doesn't have its hidden ability, or its second ability, sorry, Volt Absorb. We then fight Archie for one last time, which I don't even bother putting in really because it was a very easy battle, in fact a lot easier than the one that we did last time. But following that, the red orb activates and frees Kyogre from its 1000-year slumber, and it's able to wreak havoc on the world, which naturally a 10-year-old has to go and deal with himself, even though the champion is just came and talked to him. It's absolute bullshit, but we're going to deal with it anyway. So now I'm expecting an absolutely intense fight versus Kyogre. We're hoping maybe a couple of lucky Thunderbolts for Gyarados might be able to take it down, but I am scared because this thing is an absolute beast. Since it's our responsibility to deal with it, I suppose we're going to have to, and it's going to be a long fight. Actually, who am I kidding? Of course I'll run the fuck away from this. I am not dealing with this in a million years.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Following that nonsense, it's time for our last gym battle versus this weird looking geezer, Watson, the water type gym leader. Shouldn't be too much of a problem with us. He leads Love Disc and hits an Attract unfortunately, and we try to retaliate back with a Thunderbolt, but of course we are found to be in love with this little piece of shit. He hits a Water Pulse, which doesn't do too much damage, and we stay in love. I then decide to switch out for Drum to get rid of that effect, and he also can't use Attract on us. Drum takes a soft Water Pulse before we retaliate back with Thunderbolt, which just doesn't KO and takes Love Disc into the red. Of course Wallace is going to heal here, so we just decide to hit him again with another Thunderbolt. This one must bring him to about 1 HP, which is extremely frustrating, before another one takes it down. Next up is a Whiscash, which we can't really do too much against with Drum, but we decide to stay in anyway and hit him with an Ice Beam. Unfortunately it doesn't do too much damage, but he sets up Rain Dance, and that means that we can use a superpower boosted Surf, which just doesn't KO, leaves him on 1 HP. Unfortunate. The rain continues as we hit another Surf to take it down. Next up for the leader is Celio. We use Thunderbolt from Drum, which takes it to just below half, before a Body Slam hits and paralyzes us. How unfortunate. We actually try another Thunderbolt here after taking an Aurora Beam. It hits this time through paralysis, and we manage to take on Celio with a critical hit this time. Unfortunately we didn't get it last time. He brings out Milotic. Thankfully the rain ends and we manage to switch over to Narrow, who takes an Ice Beam which doesn't do too much damage at all, but manages to get the freeze. Water Pulse is next up, doesn't do too much damage. We defrost and hit a strong Thunderbolt, taking him to about a third. Another Water Pulse later, followed by a Thunderbolt from Narrow, is enough to take down Milotic. Thank God, because this thing is an absolute beast. Finally up is Seeking. All we have to do is connect with one Thunderbolt and the game's over. We managed to get our 8th gym badge. Next up for us, it's time to take on Victory Road. We get the rain bands from Wallace, make our way there, and then we finally have our last rival fight versus Wally, who actually has a decent team these days, but still pretty flawed in some places. Wally's read the memo. He starts with Altaria, and we start with Drum, who gets an Intimidate attack drop. One Ice Beam hits Altaria, he brings him to the red, and we manage to get the freeze. Thankfully at this point Wally's a bit poor and only managed to use the super potion, so we can hit back with another Ice Beam to take it down. Pretty easy so far. Next up comes Magneton, so we decide to switch to some nerd who resists any electric type moves. Thankfully he opts for Thunderbolt. We then take a pretty soft Tri attack, which doesn't do too much to some nerd, before we dig, and when we come back up we should be able to take this Magneton down in one hit, which we do. Following this, we try and learn Rain Dance. I did consider it for a second, but opted against it, although it could have been a pretty handy move. Next up is Roselia, who's an absolute beast against us, so we switch to Abolish. Thankfully it's a great read. He poisons us, which means our Aerial Ace will do Gust's boosted damage now, and even without a crit we would be able to take that down. Next up is Delcatty, which, because we're still poisoned, I decided to go for Aerial Ace, bringing it to about a quarter. He hits a pretty weak Magical Leaf on us before Poison does a bit more damage. He opts for another Super Potion, but all we need is another Aerial Ace to take down the cat. Next up is his ace, Gardevoir, which is a pretty dangerous Pokemon, so we need to get the hell out of here. We switch over to Drum, who should be able to deal with him, despite not having a great special defense, and he hits a Psychic to bring us just to about half. I am at risk to a crit, but I decide to go for a Surf anyway, and he just retaliates with Double Team. Another Surf should do the trick, but it doesn't, and he hits a Psychic, and we're just begging for no crit at this rate. But of course it crits and takes us down. That is such a bad play on my part and so unnecessary. At this point my OBS decided to break, but the end of the fight went a little something like this, which should be able to reflect it. We then catch a Bagon in a Master Ball as our little ringer encounter to replace for Gyarados. We do end up naming this one Shard, another random name for it. We then evolve it into a Salamence because we can't use Shelgon, sorry, and then we should be pretty set for the Elite Four. What a fantastic team member that is, and a very valuable replacement. In the exact same battle, we managed to evolve our Loudred into an Explode, and as I said earlier, I absolutely love this evolutionary line, so I'm buzzing to have Penalty evolved on the team. We do pick up some items and TMs along the way to improve our team as well. The first members battle actually freezes, but a Silk Scarf and Guts boosted Facade does the trick for us this time, and it's a clean sweep for Abolish. Thank God. Next up is Phoebe, who leads a Dusclops, and we lead Penalty. Penalty manages to have a Shadow Ball, funnily enough, which I didn't know he could learn, and we fire one off on the first Dusclops, but it retaliates with a Curse, which puts us on a timer, unfortunately. Without that, I'm pretty certain that we could have clean swept this whole team using Penalty, but now we're going to have to keep a massive eye on our HP. Next up is a Bayonet, which we should be able to one-hit KO with Shadow Ball, and we do to take it down. Unfortunately, Curse is building up here, so we have to switch out on Sableye, even though we could take it down pretty easily. We switch to Shard, which gets an Intimidate drop. Sableye fires off a Psychic before we hit a Dragon Claw back on Sableye. Unfortunately, it starts with the Attract bullshit, which if we don't break through, we're going to have to switch. We break through and hit the Dragon Claw to take it down. And we managed to get a level in the process as well. Next up is Dusclops. We need to switch back to Penalty, who takes a pretty soft Ice Beam, which doesn't do too much damage. We then hit a Shadow Ball, which takes it to about a quarter. He hits an Earthquake, which thankfully doesn't crit, and we stay alive. Citrus Berry then comes into play, we hit another Shadow Ball, and we need to KO, and we do. This leads the final Pokemon, Bayonet. For some reason I decide to go to Abolish here, who takes a Psychic, and a special defense drop as well. We're then hit by our own poison, we hit an Aerial Ace, which takes it to the red, and then Psychic is able to take down Abolish. Very unfortunate, and I'd say that's a pretty poor play for myself. So then we switch over to Shard, who gets an Intimidate drop again, and then full restores. We manage to hit a Dragon Claw, which might KO, but takes it down to the red and allows for another full restore. We return the favour again with another Dragon Claw, which allows for a KO this time. Got another member, Glacier, on the team, who were actually able to sweep just using Narrow and a combination of Surf and Thunderbolt. It was a pretty easy fight, so I'll skip it to the end, and you'll see that he hasn't took much damage, and despite taking a Blizzard in the hail, he actually only turns out to about 74 HP, fires back a Thunderbolt, which is a one-hit KO with Magnet attached to him. Last but not least is Drake, who is kind of a similar story to the last fight, with some Nerd this time. Some Nerd is able to pretty much Ice Beam his entire team and not take much damage in the process at all. So we do just that, and then we finish it to get our final Elite Four member complete. This time it's on to Steven, and we've only lost about 3 members I think the entire journey, so hopefully we can keep that number. So now it's time for Steven. Let's finish the job. So last up we have Steven, and I tell you what, he has a hell of a team. We need a really strong start here, so I start with Shard, who gets an Intimidate drop on Skarmory. We then opt for a Flamethrower, which might KO, and unfortunately brings him into the red, so he's allowed to set up spikes. That's a bit shit for us. Before he goes for a full restore, we retaliate with a Flamethrower, which actually does get a crit this time and takes him down. I just wish that had been the turn earlier, but hey ho. Next up is Claydol, and we're forced to switch, so we go over to Penalty. He's hurt by the spikes before he sets up a Light Screen, and a Silk Scarf boosted return hits him hard to about a third. We then tank an Earthquake crit of all things before we hit another return to take Claydol down. Next up is Aggron, and again we are kind of forced to switch here, so I decided to bring out Treadjuice for a heroic moment because I really wanted him to feature in the last battle at least. Earthquake doesn't affect him before he fires off a Water Pulse, but Light Screen keeps the damage down before he manages to actually hit a Thunder on us and just doesn't take us down. With Light Screen wearing off, we're able to take him down with one massive Water Pulse. Unfortunately then we'd realistically need to sack Treadjuice off to ensure a clean switch, so we try and do as much damage as we can. We hit off a Water Pulse, which manages to actually get the confusion off. That is absolutely massive. He then hurts himself, so I decide to opt for a Stun Spore to try and do as much damage as possible. It paralyzes, and then he hits the Ancient Power to take us down. Rest in peace, Treadjuice, you're a tank. We bring out Narrow next. He hits a Surf on him. It brings him down to about a third, and unfortunately he hits himself into healing range, so Steven can use a full restore on him. We then hit another Surf, which brings him to just above half, and then we strike a Confused Ray. Cradley decides to return the favour, breaks through confusion, and reconfuses us as well. Unfortunately, we're in a bit of a stalemate now, so I decide to use Surf. It hits, and just brings him into the red. He then hits a Giga Drain, which shouldn't do too much because we're electric type as well. And then another Surf should be able to do the job after we break through and take it down. I'm hoping for a Moldo next, but he actually decides to go for Metagross. I need a clean switch, so I need to let Narrow go down. Rest in peace, you little beast. We then bring through some Nerd. He's hurt by spikes. He takes a Psychic, which doesn't crit, and we fire off an Earthquake. It brings him down to the red, unfortunately, before the Citrus Berry. And hopefully he doesn't heal, but he does. And then we have to fire off another Earthquake and hope for the best. It's Soft Sand boosted, and it gets a critical hit to take down Metagross' biggest threat. Last up is our Moldo. We've got Torrent now, so we use a Surf, which manages to take him down. And that's that. We've managed to beat Pokémon Sapphire in a Hardcore Nuzlocke with only Blue Pokémon. So I hope you've enjoyed anyway. It was a bit of a challenge for me. I only did it in one night, so there may have been a couple of mistakes and throws here and there, but I hope you've enjoyed anyway. I do apologise if the commentary wasn't too good of a standard. I'm not used to sort of post-commentating things, and I have a bit of a sore throat and mouth at the moment, hence why I sound like I've got a bit of a lisp. But thank you for watching, I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you next time.